So here we are. Good morning to everybody who's connected online. Of course, we are here in Montecompagni. There's a group here in Montecompagni for our summer school, Digital Rights and Embodied Memories, U for Us Differences project. Right, so with this first morning of talk, and today we have three exceptional lecturers, and so I hope that I'm sure it will be interesting and relevant discussion about some of the key issues of this digital transition, or which we are all witnessing. So the first speaker will be Raitis Smits. Good morning, Raitis.
Good morning.
Eccolo. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So I just set a bit the audio, and maybe we give another couple of minutes, Raitis, so that people can connect online as well. We have, as always, these two spaces. We have a physical space here in Montecompagni and a digital space because we are streaming this talk line. So we have a group of students and professors by Art Academy of Latvia participating in the summer school, and we have Raitis, which is, I think he's in Latvia, so
yes.
You're in Latvia now? Right, so
yeah, I'm in Riga.
Right, so let me briefly introduce you, Raitis, and because you leave the floor to you, and Raitis Smits. She is an artist and founding director of RIXC, Center for New Media Culture in Riga, and curator of the annual RIXC Art Science Festival. She teaches as associate professor at Art Academy of Latvia, as visiting lecturer at MIT ACT. In 2017, Raitis was a Fulbright researcher in the Graduate Center of New York City. In his artistic practice, Raitis Smits works together with Raitis Smits. The work has been shown in Post-MoMA, Futurium Museum, Venice Architecture Biennale, Arte Electronica Center, CKM, HTK, Van Haben Museum, Kumu Museums, and other venues. Raitis Smits has received RIXC Arte Electronica Award of Excellence from the Latvian Ministry of Culture, and was the winner of Falling Walls Award, twice nominated for Purvitis Prize in Visual Arts in Latvia, and nominated for the World Technology Award. So, Raitis, it's a pleasure to leave the floor to you, and thank you very much for having accepted our invitation. Please.
Hello, thank you, Franco, for introduction. As you see, my lecture is about virtual reality and augmented reality technologies in arts. I will not go very much into the technicalities because, as you know, especially those who work with these technologies, so that these are changing quite rapidly, and what was relevant like 5 years ago today is already obsolete. So, however, if there are questions, so I can also answer after my presentation more practical ones as well. So, yeah, we run here in RIXC in Riga. We have a gallery where we are exhibiting digital and new media arts. Among that, so there's also virtual reality works and augmented reality works. So we try to kind of promote this field of art here locally. However, me and myself and Raitis Smits, my spouse and partner, we've been involved with digital arts and new media arts since mid-90s already. And we organize also here in RIXC, in Riga, annual RIXC Art and Science Festival. So for us, like I'd like to start my lecture with a quote of Domenico Quaranta, who is Italian, by the way, and actually, I sort of want to refer to digital technologies in large in the beginning, because on the one hand, so as he points out, so when we see certain elements of digital technologies like QR code or Instagram image or similar things, or a tweet, so we actually are sort of have consensus that we see the same thing, all of us. However, it's pretty complex infrastructure behind it, so behind the digital technologies, and it's changing and it's developing. So, and nowadays I will focus on virtual reality, but nowadays the artificial intelligence algorithms and machine learning has become a very relevant topic also in the arts. So some artists work with these technologies already, and I will, in my presentation, also show you a few examples. So, however, beside that, so I'd like to say that even we don't have, none of us has a kind of whole picture about this infrastructure, which has become a part of our everyday life. So it also, in a way, is still in a beginning phase. The time has passed. The time seems to pass quickly, but still, there's a very short period for new media arts, digital arts, media arts in general. So that means that the tradition is still developing. So if we compare to, for instance, to more traditional arts like painting or sculpture, so there's very long tradition in that field of art. So where the digital art or new media art so is pretty new and still in this very development phase. So and from there it also seems that artists are like every 5 years, every decade are thinking of new technologies and how to use them in their artworks. So it is using like emerging technologies in arts. It can be pretty challenging because on the one hand, you have this whole field of experimentation. So you can experiment with it. There is no defined rules. There is no defined standards. Yet, on the other hand, it's pretty risky. So you sort of risk by in your artistic practice not kind of be included into a recognized flow of art, into recognized tradition. So digital artists, however, it has been around since early computer art. So still, they're struggling being included in art market, for instance, because on one hand, this medium itself sort of asks for a redefinition of the art market. So in art market, we are very much focused on commodity, on art as a commodity, on art as a object, so which we can take physical object. So where we work with these digital technologies, so it's art has become pretty much immaterial. Also there are several quotes by artist and theoretician Steven Wilson, who's written quite a big book, like encyclopedia about digital arts, it's called Information Arts. So he's also pointing out that the risks of working with new technologies in arts is that artists, on the one hand, they're in kind of this dual position. So, and I've experienced it myself again and again and again, working with these technologies. So on the one hand, so you are expected to be very creative and experiment with these technologies and show something new and surprise everybody with something, but on the other hand, so you are sort of asked to stand back and be critical about these issues, because there comes, of course, many of these technologies come from military origins, and they have these surveillance potential, and also in commercial world, network technologies particularly, which are used are for used also for surveilling on the society. So on the other hand, so there has to be this criticality about use of those particular technologies. So it could be like, for artists, could be interesting and conceptual challenge. However, so very often it gets nivelated to skepticism from the outside world, I would say, not from artists themselves. So instead of being kind of rationally critical, so people tend to be skeptical, and that doesn't lead anywhere. So because nobody really kind of understands the problem, so just be skeptical about that. So and therefore I would say that artists working with technologies still have to do their homework and broaden their perspective, broaden their worldview, and be also interested in science subjects, in science discoveries, because technology, it's appliance for the science. So it's has been developed as an application of the scientific discoveries. So artists working with that, so they can broaden their perspective by studying this. And for instance, taking an image, and image is, so to say, one of the mediums, one of the main mediums probably in the arts. So when we go from painting and skills of the painter, so to photography, where actually artists are using certain technique, the machine, photo camera, to produce an art. So it leads us, it still captures the surrounding world. It goes further and leads us to moving image, which again captures the surrounding world, something which we can see with our eyes. So when we come to today's image, where we're using new technologies, actually image has become a dynamic system. It's no longer necessarily a representation of outside world. It's definitely not just a representation, optical representation of outside world. It is actually translated into the numerical sequence, which can be programmed. And once you can program it, so you can turn image into the sound, you can turn sound into the text, and vice versa. So you can use image and manipulate it in real time. So it's not necessarily that, like, it's not a television image, so where you just translate what you see through the camera in real time. So here actually you can influence image by programming and change the whole aesthetics of the image. You can change the whole structure of the image. You can also influence image by different other mediums, like sound, for instance. So that also artists have to bear in mind, that there are these new aesthetics, which actually visual aesthetics, which come along with using digital and programmable technologies. So going to virtual reality particularly, there is a much longer tradition, as we probably know. First virtual reality headsets have been created already in 60s, and those were just like huge head-mounted displays. So, however, only in late 80s and early 90s of the last century began, like, so to say, first wave of virtual reality used in arts. And the virtual reality is gonna, I would say that the same for scientists and as for artists as well. So that there is this idea of creating non-existing virtual world, tricking our senses, first of all vision, but also the whole body, and trick ourselves and kind of expect being placed inside that particular virtual environment. And artists, of course, are using it, and I would say, I think it's very stimulates the whole possibilities, the set of possibilities that stimulates creativity and imagination pretty much. So where the spectator, instead of just passively absorbing the artwork, so has been placed in the middle of the artwork and actually experience it through his whole sensual environment. So going to some particular works, I'd like to mention a few early virtual reality artworks, and particularly this one. Those are actually have been lost, so they are not anymore around, and this has like to do with another problem of art using digital technology. So it's very short lasting. So unless it has been preserved by computer scientists and specialists in museums, and unless it has been restored once in a while, so once in a technology, when the technology kind of changes, so it has to be restored. Also, this work by Monika Fleischmann and Wolfgang Strauss, Home of the Brain, from late 80s and early 90s of the last century, it's not available anymore. So, but they were using pretty much the same setup as we use today, except instead of virtual reality controllers, which we have today, at that time, those were so-called data gloves, and data gloves were pretty much kind of constructed or self-made, usually worn on one hand. So, and those were used for navigation through the virtual space. So, in this work, they constructed a virtual space with sort of 4 places or 4 homes for each one was inhabited with by one theoretician, Joseph Weizenbaum, Marvin Minsky, Paul Virilio, and William Flosser. So who were when you enter the space virtually, so they were reading statements about technology, on social, on society at that time. So that was the content of this work. But besides that, of course, so this was like environment. So I just wander around and see all these 3-dimensional objects. So another work by them, which is called Berlin Cyber City and was created around the same time, is virtual work where actually spectators can move around a small sensor on a table on a plan of Berlin, particularly that part of Berlin where the Berlin Wall was. And this was sort of dedicated, the work was dedicated also to the fall of Berlin Wall, and where people could meet in this exhibition together, from West Berlin and from East Berlin, and they could move around this virtual, the actual flat real image, and see the virtual Berlin on the screen. So that was like a table, like an environment. So for people who could come from those 2 different parts of the city, like with experience from 2 different realities from Soviet regime, and could share their experiences, could like start talking about these, their experiences, the history, and everything around that. So, and this also sort of relays the city as a subject in art. So also relates to Geoffrey Shaw, Legible City, created around the same time, which is different kind of artwork. It has been restored, that can be experienced in ZKM Center, so in Karlsruhe, where spectator sits on a bike, on a real bike, and just turns the pedals and cycles. Also, he can turn the steering wheel. but on the screen you see at the image of a city, of a particular city. So there were 3 city plans used from Karlsruhe, Amsterdam, and New York, Manhattan particularly. And the buildings were replaced with texts. So with texts written by Dirk Gronwald. Actually, those were manipulations taken out from newspapers, and kind of were replaced, talking about particular problems of that time. So however, in New York, so those were 4 fictional stories, also specially created for New York. So you could cycle around and actually read the city in a sense. Going a bit further in possibilities of virtual reality, one would need to mention Jaron Lanier, artist and computer scientist who from States, who used to run a company in Silicon Valley, and which was producing actually in late 80s, in early 90s, the company was producing software and hardware for virtual reality in a small scale, of course, but he was using also the possibility access to this technology, and he created several virtual reality works, and none of them, as to my knowledge, none of them functions. It's also very hard to obtain images from those early works on the internet, at least. So, and this here is a screenshot of virtual reality musical instrument or environment where you can travel around and create the music. So again, there's this possibility which he explored. He created new kind of instruments. So some instruments have reference, like saxophone, to the real instruments, but then there are some instruments which, for instance, the one which resembles gyroscope a little bit. So those are absolutely new kind of instruments which are possible because of these virtual reality technologies. So, and one can learn to play them. So as he's pointing out, that the musical instruments themselves are quite complex and sophisticated interfaces as such. So one has to learn them, how to use them. So we're here also. So on the one hand, you have like enormous possibilities in creating virtual environments. So he has chosen to create these musical instruments where you generate music. So there's no pre-written samples or pre-written kind of pieces of music. So when you move around these instruments, you actually generate sound. So it generates notes, and it creates a sound piece each time different. So unless one learns how to use them and repeat the same sound piece which you've created. Going a bit further, so in mid 90s, and again, so this points out the specificity probably of that time, artists using virtual reality technology. So only those artists who could get access to very state-of-the-art technology at that time, so could create these virtual reality works. Like Char Davis, she worked at Softimage company in Canada, and sorry, Softimage company was producing software at that time, and she was using this software for creating her 2 virtual reality works, and one of them you see here, it's osmosis, so which is sort of referring to osmosis, the term from biology, so the molecules movement of the molecules. But here actually she has created quite poetic and spectacular virtual world, which is using elements of the nature, and particularly here the tree in the center of the piece, and also like machine created or man created elements like program code, for instance. As a basis for this, there's a certain line grid, and spectator travels through that grid and experience those individual spaces, 12 of them altogether. So it comes in combination with the sound. So, and it's quite spectacular and poetic sort of experience. And then the experience actually is the key word for this artwork. So I can talk about it because this one I've experienced myself in Arts Electronics Center at that time. So the equipment was quite bulky and heavy, so including the headset, which was pretty large and almost like a helmet. So also you had to wear a special vest for navigating through the space. So it's interesting and remarkable because interface for navigation was very innovative and has been rarely used also today. So the navigation was based on spectators breathing. So once you were breathing in, so you were kind of levitating upwards, you were moving upwards. And when you were breathing out, so you were drowning, sort of moving downwards. Also, the balance of your body was kind of part of the navigation as well. So this was all done by wearing this physical vest, so which was detecting movements of your chest when you're breathing. So there are a few other screenshots from that work, and also here. So that's the textual part, the program code, which become also part of the content of the work. So. Yes, and going to another example, I'd like to probably emphasize again the sort of tendency or strive of extending our sensorial experiences. And here, even when you as Emmanuel Kochi is pointing out, even when you try to shut down all your sensorial experiences, still you're left with some sensation. So which can be your dreams, your memories, everything that goes in your consciousness around. So, and again, so virtual reality in a way is quite a good possibility for putting spectator and his consciousness and his senses in absolutely different environment, and really kind of let travel your mind and your perception. And this particular work, which I'd like to mention, Notes on Blindness, it is actually originally a documentary film on about writer author John Hall, who in early 80s, in 1983, he noticed that he's losing his vision, and he just starting to write diaries, everyday experiences about how it is when you slowly but gradually losing your vision, and when your sight is no longer the main guidance of the surrounding world. So instead, so he started to focus on surrounding sounds and started to imagine those sounds in his mind. And that was a documentary film about these, about his diaries. And later after that, so also the virtual reality environment was produced, and it's also available online for downloading. So you can go, if you look for the Notes on Blindness online, so you can also download the virtual reality work actually, and either view it on Oculus, or even on your smartphone with a simple Google's the cardboard, Google Cardboard. So you can view this work as well. So, and the basis of the work is a soundtrack, which is voice reading the diaries, and then on the top of that there's a layer of surrounding sounds, like children passing by or playing in a park, barking dogs, or sound of the carousel, for instance, or sound of the rain. And once there is this sound, it also highlights the image a little bit, as you see here in this screenshot, of that particular sound source. So it's very pictorial, it's very spectacular, and also very deep in the sense of the content, of course, very poetic and at the same time tragic. So yeah, I really recommend to take a look at this work. So not being just purely kind of romantic or maybe visionary or poetic about virtual reality, I wanted to show also just a screenshot because you can't find it online. So I saw it myself, this work. And it is by Jordan Wolfson, called Real Violence. It was exhibited in Whitney Biennale in 2017. And they were like in exhibition space, there were, I think there were 6 or 7 headsets, and spectators simultaneously could watch this piece, which is about a minute and a half long. And also after that, so taking down the headset so people could kind of like look at each other in a way, because the content here is very brutal. So the artist standing with the baseball bat, that's the artist himself, he has created this very realistic sort of film, 360 film, where he's standing on a corner of the city and just beating this other man who is kneeling on a sidewalk, which actually is a virtual avatar, but it's made in very realistic manner. And there's no any narrative, no any reason for such a violence. So it's just a pure act of violence. And so with very realistic sounds, so you just stand there helplessly and observe how one man is beating to death the other one. So it's a way, kind of, it comes from the artist's notion where he says that for him, it's physically has been always very difficult to watch violent scenes in the movies, violent scenes on YouTube, or in real world as well. So where you are kind of very helpless against the pure brutality. And here with this virtual work, so you have, as a spectator, you have 2 options: either to stand and watch it and have this like experience this feeling of helplessness, of disgust, and yeah, it's everything that comes with that. You can also choose not to watch it and turn your back and look the other way. But still you hear these very realistic sounds in your headset, so still you are present there. So then the third option is not to watch at all and take off the helmet and go away and leave. So but it's again, it's very I would say a very powerful use of virtual reality technologies, where actually spectator opposite to interactivity of virtual reality, where you can just travel around, play around music, or experience something, and you have this kind of desire of kind of going further and further and experience more and more. Here you're very helpless. It's not interactive at all. You just stand there and observe it. So now I think, yeah, I still have a little bit of time. So maybe in 10 minutes, I can rush through the second part of my presentation, where I'd like to show my and Russ's work, which is called Atmospheric Forest. And yeah, first of all, the sensorium, as Caroline Jones is pointing out, it always has been mediated. So even the sound, so we are now in pure virtual environment. So me sitting here in Riga giving a lecture to the computer screen, basically, because I don't see anyone there in the audience, and you listening to me on the other side of the world. So again, using this virtual environment, so that's computer networks generally. So, which is a mediator, but actually, even if we are in the same room and when we speak, still to be able to hear or to be able to produce sound and to hear sound, so we need an air. So air is a mediator for the sound waves, for instance. I will skip this one because this is another work. So Herman Maat and Karen Lansert, two artists from Netherlands, they're using these EEG headsets and creating a performance where two performers sit with these headsets, and they actually do kiss each other, and the kiss gets registered, and the kiss produces this kind of diagram and also sound. I don't know if you can hear anything. So this is Kiss from mine and Russ's performance in 2016. I'll go further. So this is an exhibition in our gallery. I think I have to jump this one. But going further to atmospheric forest artwork. Yes, so we tend to work together with scientists, and we use scientific data from time to time in our artworks, and particularly also in atmospheric forest. We used scientific data from observations of the Finnwald forest in Swiss Alps, where scientists are monitoring the growth of that forest, which is suffering from climate change, particularly from drought. So, but our goal was not to illustrate the data, but actually to create a pure experience of being in a virtual forest and actually experiencing forest breathing, as scientists are saying that it can be compared. So that the volatile emissions of from a pine trees, for instance, can be compared to trees breathing process in a way. So because trees are observing and also forgot the word, but it's sort of a breathing process in a way. So our goal was to create this experience, the imaginative experience. So, however, on the basis of that, there is a real data sets, so which actually controls the artwork, the visual parts of the artwork. And I will go further in slides, and hopefully I can play a little part of the video as well. So this is the screenshot of the virtual reality work. It has been created in several formats because the history of the work is such that we were asked to participate in a ZKM exhibition in critical zones in 2020, and that was time of the COVID. And actually, we were not able to exhibit virtual reality work at that time. So even the exhibition couldn't be open in May as it was supposed to be open. So instead, they created a virtual exhibition in the first place. And we created 360 virtual 360 artwork on the internet. So, and that was part of this virtual exhibition. So after that, we, instead of virtual reality work, we exhibited there two-channel immersive video works, so which were two large projections in a corner of the space. And the third version is, or actually the original version is the virtual reality experience. So it is a point cloud scanning of the particular forest in Finwald, where scientists, as I mentioned, observed this forest for a longer period of time. And altogether, it was a 3-year research project where Rasa mostly traveled to Finwald and met with scientists and also visited the forest. And here you see these devices which scientists are using to actually to measure different kinds of data. So, for instance, resin pressure. I didn't know one such exists in a tree trunk. So, in a pine trees, there isn't pressure, the emission, the volatile emissions, which he mostly senses the smell of the forest. And then, of course, the humidity of the soil, humidity of the air, and temperature of the air, also fall of the leaves and similar things. So the scientists also have a sort of a open-air laboratory there, so where they as you see here on those two top images, so they are simulating climate change in sort of laboratory situations. So where they are researching so which tree species are more resistant to rise of temperature and less water in a soil. However, so what we did, we scanned with the LiDAR scanner, we scanned the forest in those particular areas where scientists are doing the observation. One area is kind of artificially irrigated to see if there's any difference. And then we got the data from scientists about one particular growing season from early spring to late fall. And the data set represented 6 data sets. That was a resin pressure. So from 6 trees, resin pressure from 6 particular pine trees. Then the volatile emissions, air temperature, soil humidity, air humidity, and also day-night cycle. So yeah, still we are doing with time a little bit. These slides are, it wasn't enough for us just to create a virtual reality experience. So we wanted to work actually with real substance as well. And these are screenshots from Rasa performing the resin melting and turpentine distillating process. So that resin was collected also in Finwald in that forest. And what we did, so Rasa is doing particularly this performance every time we are invited for the exhibition. So she melts this resin, and resin becomes a cuneiform. The black, it's not pure, but the black kind of dirty piece of cuneiform. And once you melt or cook the resin further, so you can also get turpentine out of it. So it's just a kind of interesting process of itself, also to hold, enhance the actual material or the actual resin, and go through those steps, like from transforming the resin into other states of the material. So that's the screenshot of the dual channel projection, as you see here. So there are 5 scenes altogether, and this particular one is just a visualization of those data sets. So where the orange line, the small one, is representing the resin pressure. Then the larger bits around the tree trunks, those are these volatile emissions. And then in the ground, we have the movement of small particles representing the moisture of the ground, the humidity, and then the humidity in the air, and also here going back a little bit, so we can see that there's certain color and certain brightness or darkness of that particular forest, which represents the day-night cycle. In the nighttime it gets darker and cooler, and in the daytime it gets lighter and also warmer, so sometimes even up to bright red color, so when the temperature has been very high at that particular day. So we compressed all these almost a year-long data sets into 17 minutes experience. And yeah, there has been several exhibitions, and currently it is exhibited in Basel, in HEC, House of Electronic Arts, and there's a virtual reality version of atmospheric forest. And
no sound though.
No sound. Okay. Anyway, so yeah. So I'll play a little bit, and then the sound is crucial for this also. But okay, so I will not go now in settings, not waste time for this. But what we wanted to do with this, so we wanted to put spectator in a position that he can actually not just observe forest from the regular kind of point, but also the spectator could go underground and experience forest from the underground position, as well as travel through the tree trunk, like particularly here, through the beam of the emissions up to the to the top of the forest, and experience also forest from a top. So this is the data set. We just gonna, that's not a part of the virtual reality work, but we just did a little visualization of the changes in the data set. I think that was it. There's also 2-channel experience, and I guess, yeah, that's all. So I will, yeah, a bit over the time, but thank you for listening, and I finished with this. So
thank you very much, Raitis, really, for this very rich and really interesting and so multifaceted overview. There are a lot, as always, a lot of themes, and there's not a lot of time. So I hope it's always dense. There are so many questions at stake that it's, but it's also I think interesting to just throw them on the table, and then eventually have new occasion to dig in more. So maybe if there's somebody who wants to place a question to Raitis, here they can come straight to the table, or people following the presentation online, they can use the chat, I think. I think I was particularly waiting for some feedback. Right, I was really fascinated and very interested in this use of the philosophical use of the virtual reality concerning violence. This I thought it was really poses all a series of very deep and disturbing questions. In this. So, is someone interested in something to Raitis? here in the monastery, everything is quiet. So it's no more.
It's still early morning, I guess, yeah, for
Kanslas. We have here students from Raitis Smits.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I really found, I think it's interesting that you also mentioned the movie Notes on Blindness as kind of an approach to enable other kinds of immersion, like in the film, more kind of. Sorry, we just had a power cut here, so we are now resorting to.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just froze. Everything froze.
And what came to my mind is the 1993 movie Blue by Derek Jarman, and this movie is kind of the same notion because it's about a person that is HIV positive, and that person during the course of the AIDS sickness, it is possible to gradually lose your sight. And so this movie is actually, there's no image at all. It's only a blue screen with sound. So the movie is basically just a sound play with a blue screen. And for me, that was also one of the most immersive movies, because at some point you start to kind of see shapes in that blue screen and be totally immersed in the audio. So that was my connection with it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you very much, Raitis. I hope that we can have future occasions.